Hi, this is Nikki from Little Blue Artworks and welcome to the moon gazing hare tutorial. Right, to start off your moon gazing hare, you're going to need a few tools. You're going to need your needle felting pad. This one is one that I handmade and it's filled with organic buckwheat husks. You can also use a felting sponge or a piece of plastic packaging, or you can make your own felting bags and you just use a filler such as rice or lentils. You can buy these on my website, or if you're working with a kit, you should have one inside. We will also be using 3 felting needles. This one is the large size, color coded in green, and this is a size 32. We've got the medium needle, size 36, and this is pink colored, and the fine needle, which is red colored, and this is a size 38. We're going to be starting with our main color of wool, which is this lovely caramel brown colored wool, and it's around about 15 grams. First, we're going to divide that up into 2 parts. We're going to put around about 1/3 of this to the side. You just want to divide your wool so you've got roughly 1/3 to pop aside for later. And this is the smaller third, which we're going to just put aside. And then the other 2/3, this is going to make the main structure of our hair. So all we're going to do is roll this up, but we're going to make a kind of cone shape with it, a long cone shape. So if I rolled it up like so, we'd end up with more of a sausage shape. So what I'm going to do is pile some of these fibers more heavily on one side. Here I'm going for the left. This will be the bottom of the cone shape, and this will be the top as it has less fibers. So I'm just going to build up that bottom end to be slightly heavier with the wool, so when we felt it we get that shape. So I'm now going to go for a roll, rolling it tightly on the mat, tucking the smaller end in that little bit more, so that is tapered compared to the larger end here. This is the very rough cone shape that we will be going for. So now we're just going to stab through with our needles. I'm going to hold that down with one of my needles just now, just to show you the needle felting process and how it works if this is your first time felting. So here's my large green needle. So if you've never felted before, looking at the felting needle here, it's long with a very sharp point. Generally speaking, they are triangular shaped and they have very small barbs on each side of that triangle. So these tiny little hooks face downwards towards the tip of the needle. When you're pushing your needle through the fibers, that sharp end goes through and those tiny little hooks hold on to the fibers, agitating them against other fibers. This then mats the fibers together and then they begin to hold, and this is the felting process. So what we're going to do is just start pushing through that large needle all the way along the length of that cone shape. If you have rolled it quite tightly, you might find this quite hard to push through. If it's too hard, go down to use your medium needle, which is thinner, and it will hold on to slightly less fibers as you're felting through. That should go through a lot quicker. Just a few stabs along its length and it's already beginning to hold. So I'm just going to turn it now and go along again this side. I go in with my large needle. This will make it faster, although harder to felt. So I'm going right through the fibers here. You can hear it crunching as it goes down, and then the mat is there behind it to save your needle from breaking on the table and to save your table from needle marks. So you do need a soft surface underneath when you're needle felting. Now I'm just going to continue felting that up and down all the way over and turning it as I go. You always want to make sure not to over felt it, otherwise the fibers will stick to your pad. You want to just pick it up every now and again and keep on turning it. And this will then hold together and become a smaller, denser version of this fluffy cone that we have here. And I'll begin to speed this part up. Just to add in, you might catch me using 2 needles at the same time. This is not something I recommend, it's just something that I've practiced doing over time to speed up my felting process. through felting my cone at this stage. It's still quite squishy and I want it to be a bit more firm and tighter felted. I'm now going to come in, however, at this end here, being the larger end, and using my large or my medium needle, whichever is working better for you, I'm going to stab along lengthways just to get those fibres in at the bottom, and then they become felted into a flat circle. So we have the flat cone with a bottom so that that can sit up on itself when we've finished felting the shape. So now we've felted the bottom, I've just tucked in some of those fibres at the top by just tapping over that area with my medium needle here, so it's easier. And I'm going to be felting this top area right down, so it's going to be the head of your hair. So I'm going to continue felting just this top area for now. I'm also going to be suggesting an area where the head will be. So around about 1/3 down, which is about here from the top, which is the small point, I'm going to start felting a groove with my medium needle by tapping and turning my cone all the way around. This will then cut into the shape a little bit to give you the area where your head is, to begin working on that. So I'm going to go around that a few times to really define that groove there, and then continuing down with my head until we've got a nice firmly felted head there. So at this point here, I've felted the neck in quite deeply, so I've really got that area defined. With my medium needle, I'm now just tapping over the surface of that head, just to get the outer fibres of that shape really nicely felted firmly together. And I'm just going to continue to do this and turning it as I go. If you're feeling like your head has become a bit too long, you can always just felt it in a little bit more this way, just to bring down the length. And just gently tapping over that area. If it's too short or it's the wrong shape, you can always just build in it a little bit by taking some of that same colour from your other third and just felting that on the top, and that will continue to build up a larger area for you to work with. I'll continue to speed this part up. Just to point out now, this will be the nose of your hair. So you really want to make sure that you've felted that as nice and firmly as you can. You don't want a big wobbly, squishy nose. So if you felted that right down and it's just gone to nothing, continue to add onto it with your other wool. And then just tapping that and turning it, you should end up with a nicely firm felted nose on the end of that head area. And that's quite important because we're going to be doing some little grooves and adding detail to that area later. Okay, so now we've got a nicely formed head area with the nose nicely felted, and it's quite firm. I can give it, if I push hard, I can still give it a little bit of a squeeze in this area. The nose is nice and firm. There's still a little bit of give to the body, which is okay because we're just going to add a little bit of detail there first. So again, looking at about 2/3 down from the top, we're going to just draw a little mark there. Now that's just by tapping the needle in a vertical line if it's lying along this way. Okay, now this is going to be the start of the thigh of your hair. So what we're going to do is just from that mark there, which is about 1/3 up from the bottom, mark in an arch from that point there, coming right down to the bottom of the hair. And you're just doing this by tapping with your medium needle into an arch shape from that top down to the bottom, then just going over it and over it until you start to see a groove appearing in that area. going to do the same on the other side, so you want to make sure that that level here of the height of that thigh is the same on the other side. So I'm just going to turn it and have my needle at that point so I can really see that it's coming in that side the same height as this side here. Now I'm going to do a little mark, and then I'm just going to check it to make sure. And coming at the same size as this one here, I'm going to start to draw a very faint arch shape just to check that is similar size before I commit to that groove. And then I'm going to go ahead now, as I'm pleased with it being similar size, go over the groove a bit more. Might just give it one more double check. Yep. Okay, so now I can commit to that groove that I've made and just go with my medium needle over it and over it until that's really nicely defined area for the thigh. Now we've got our thighs in place, we're going to work on a little bit more sculpting of this comb we have to do the front legs of the hare. So I'm going to pick the area that I will decide which will be the tummy, and I think this being slightly larger here will be the back, and this here will be my tummy, and this will be the under chin of the hare looking up. So coming here around about halfway down from the top, roughly speaking, and right in between those thighs there, I'm just going to tap in a little mark. So it's starting from the middle of the length, and this I'm going to draw down right to the bottom, and this is going to be another groove that we make so that we have two legs coming at the front there. So this will sculpt those fibers into suggesting those two front legs. So you should have enough of a tummy there coming down between the two thighs to make those two front feet. Again, I'm just using my medium needle here. If your large needle is working for you at this point, you can then just quickly go over it with your large. The medium needle is just working better for me at the moment, so I'll stick with that, and I'm just going to go over those grooves, which I will do throughout the project, just going over the grooves you've made. As you're playing with your wool and felting more on, the grooves will start to come a little bit more loose, so just continue to felt for it to hold. Now you should have a nice defined groove down the front, and this is suggesting the two front legs coming down for it to stand there. Now at this point I'm just going to felt around the chest and the back here, not at the back of where the tail's going to come, but just in this whole middle section. There's still a little bit of give, and I just want to felt that in a little bit more so that that area can come in nicely felted and defined. And I'll speed this part up. Want to point out that I'm also going to be defining the outside of these two front legs just by doing a little groove along here as well, and that will further define those front legs as separate from the body. So I'm just continuing that line up towards the head and stopping that groove halfway along with the front one there. I've been sculpting around this area, I have left a little bit here where I didn't felt down too much, and this is going to be the chest area of the hare. So I didn't want to over felt this, as I want this to come out slightly compared to the rest of this upper body of the hare. I'm going to continue felting around the back and the sides, but just leaving that chest area a little bit more height than the rest. Right, so now we're at the stage where I've really felted this quite firm at this point, especially around the middle bit here. I've left a little bit of bulk for the bottom here. I've left the thighs so that they're more raised than the rest of it. Left those two legs doing the 3 grooves here, here and here. Left this chest area, and I've gone around this neck quite a few times now with my medium needle and just all over the head shape to really keep that nice and firmly felted, going over the surface over and over with my medium needle and turning as I go. Once you've got to this stage, we're going to move on to adding our ears. So moving on from the body of the hare, we have this other wool that we still have that we put aside earlier, the 1/3, and we're going to divide that again by taking off around about a quarter. We're going to pop that quarter aside. That's going to be for the feet. And then this wool here, we're going to divide this wool in half, and this is going to be for the 2 ears. They're going to be quite large ears. And you can just give them a feel, give them a squeeze, and make sure they are roughly the same amount of wool that we're going to be working with for the 2 ears. Pop one to the side and start to work on my first one. So this one here, it's going to be quite a long ear for the hare, and it's going to be coming from, attaching from the back of the head here down, all the way down its back, and then coming out. So I'm going to show you how to do the first one, and I'll speed up the second one. So we flatten down the area first, so it's a little less than the length of my small felting pad here. And what I'm going to do is fold in one length this way, and then the other length this way. This will give me a flat length to start working on. So you can either go in with your large or your medium needle here, whichever feels better to you. Just try them all out and see which is going through and felting well for you and just feels good. Between my fingers there, holding that area down, just a few stabs in, and that's already beginning to hold in that area. So now I'm going to work on one end. This end here is going to be the top of my ear, so I'm going to fold it in, but I'm going to have a little bit of a point going on, so I'm folding it in not just up and down, but in at the very end here, so that it's coming in that way, and this is going to taper off at the very end. So this corner here is also going to be folded in, and I'm going to hold it down, but folded in such a way that again it comes down to taper off that end of the ear. So now carefully I'm just going to push through to felt a few of those fibres down, and it should hold. And now I can take my finger out the way and begin stabbing it all the way up to the end there. Sometimes I can just turn it on its side to go through in that side and pull it down this way as well, and that will really help make that point there. I'm not going to over felt it until I've taken it off of my mat, but I'm just giving it a few stabs to begin that shape. And then down here at this end is going to be wider. It's not going to taper off into a point, so I'm just going to fold it down into the middle of the ear, so it's the same width as this part here. A few stabs along its length, being careful of the fingers, and I'm leaving the very ends here just to stay fluffy and loose like that. Now I've got that general shape, I'm going to take it off my mat and then felt it well all over. And you can either do this with your medium or your large needle. Again, it's about whichever is feeling better for you as you're working on it. For myself, I'm going to double up on my 2 medium needles here just to speed up the process, and I'm going to felt back and forth. Remember to picking it off your mat and then also do the other side, and I'll speed this part up. Just to point out, while I'm felting, I'm concentrating more in the inside of this shape than I am on the outside, as I want it to be flatter in the middle here, being the middle of the ear, leaving these parts to be slightly more raised than the rest of it, which will give it a nice area to define the edges of the ear. So now we've finished felting our ear. It should be really nicely, firmly felted this. You can always give it a little trim down with a pair of sharp scissors if you want to, if you like that look. I'm just trimming off the very ends there. This part here is the start of the ear, and what I want to happen here is for it to come together into not a point like this. I don't want it to be felted and flat like this, but actually pucker at the very end here. So what I'm going to do is push my finger in the middle, and with my thumb and my other finger, I'm just going to pucker that so that it has this shape here going on. And to hold that shape, if you pop it on its side, and with my medium needle here, I'm just going to felt through, right through, from one side into the other, and they should hold in that shape, but leaving these fluffy fibers there. These fibers are going to be the part that connects to the head of your hair, so you don't want to felt them down. Now I'm just ripped it off. You can see it's starting to hold there, but I'm now going to go in through this way, connecting this part of the ear to that part there. Now it's holding together. I'm going to come in the inside of the ear here just to felt that down a little bit further. And I'm just neatening up over the side with gentle taps. And now just lastly going over the middle of the ear with lots of little taps again to felt down that middle part a bit more. We've really got a nice definition between the middle of the ear and that outside area of the ear. Okay, and that is one ear done. Now we're going to do exactly the same with this felt here, and with the magic of technology, we now have 2 ears. So moving on, we're going to add a little bit of colour to our ears. Firstly, we're going to take some of this nice light coloured grey wool, and we're going to add it on the inside of our ears. So taking one to start with, I'm just going to take a very small pinch, place that starting at the bottom of the ear, and then pulling the fibres up as we go until it's reached the top, and we can just pull off any excess. And that's enough just to decorate the inside of the ear. I'm using my small or medium needle here, and I'm just tapping that in gently on the inside of that ear until it's all felted down. I don't want this to be coming through on the other side of the ear, so I am just tapping rather than stabbing it, because if I stab it right through the ear, it will start to show on the other side here. So just gentle taps as you add that on. So now I'm going to add in a little bit of darker wool to help suggest a bit more of a shadow at this part of the ear. So we're going to go for our darkest brown wool here and taking off a very, very small pinch. I'm just going to place that in the very bottom of the ear to suggest a little bit of darkness in that area. I'm using my small red needle here just to tap that in. There we go, we've got a nice little bit of depth going on in that area. Now we're going to add a little bit of overall colour to the back of the ear here. I'm going to take my mid brown, this is not the darkest brown but the next one up, so a mid brown just to colour over that caramel shaded area, and I'm just going to space out those fibres, holding them down onto the ear and then pulling them along. That will help space them out to add a little bit more of a darker colour right the way up to the tip here, and this will be on the back of the hair. And I'm using my smallest needle just to tap that in all over to add another depth of colour for a more natural look. Especially focusing on the tips here and even taking some of that darkest brown just for the very, very tips of the back of the ear. Just tapping that in gently. I'm especially focusing on the edges with this darker mid-brown, as well as generally a little bit all over, but you can see some of that lighter caramel coloured brown is still poking through, and then some areas have got darker shades, and this generally just gives it, I feel, a bit more of a natural look to the colours. Remember to take it off your pad from time to time because it does begin to felt to the fibres of the pad. Now I'm going to start felting in this way because the edges here of that ear have become a little bit fuzzy as it was being felted to the mat. So just tapping gently along the sides. If you want to, you can add in a little bit more of that darker colour here too. And there at the front, I'm going to add a tiny little bit of that darkest brown to the very tip of the ear on the inside as well. And now we've got some really nice shading going on, a little bit more interest in the colours within this ear. And we're just going to do exactly the same with this one here. Right, so once you've coloured both the ears the same, we're going to then attach it to the head. So I'm going to take my body over here. Now this is the front here of the hair, which has got the two legs down the front. This is the back, and they're going to be coming round down the back of the hair. Now this little fluffy parts here is the part we're going to attach to the head. So we're going to pop one there, and at this point it's facing out the way, and this other ear here is going to be facing the other way. So the backs of the ears should be together like this. The tops of the ears should come at similar lengths, and then this fluffy part here holding that together is where it's going to attach to the back of the hair. So that's the front of the legs, popping him on his front. This is the back area here. So I'm holding on to the very bottoms of the hare's ears, and then I'm going to hold that on the head. Now I'm just going to start tapping through with my medium needle right through the bottom of the ears to attach it into the head. And that's beginning to hold on there. Then all these fluffy parts here, if you've got quite a lot of fluff, which I do, I'm just going to pick some of that off so we don't end up with a massive head in the end, and it's also shortened down the length a bit because I don't want to build up on this nose area anymore. So holding that together still, I'm going to go then tap through those fluffy ends into the head of the hare. And that's beginning to hold on, so continue to tap that through. Here the bottom of the ears are looking rather bulky, so I'm just going to stab that down even further so that they really are attached into that head area. Through the bottom of the ears, into the head, so that they're coming down a bit more. I'm also going underneath the ears a little bit here as well, just to define that area for it to come down. This side also needs it. I'm going to make sure my ear is in the right position. Coming down under the bottom of that ear here to attach it. And then just over the general area once again. Make sure the ears are facing the right way. This ear was facing slightly down, so I'm just going to turn it where it should be going. Felting in the bottom of that ear along the top of the back will help hold that in that position there. Same with the other ear if it needs it. Down again the size of the ear at this stage here because I don't want it to be too large, so I'm really giving that a good stab through. If you find your ears quite thick in this area, just continue to stab it down. That will bring down the size and also help further attach the ear to the head. I'm quite happy with the ears, they're firmly attached on, so we're going to move on to putting in the feet down below. Right, so moving on to the feet, we're going to take what's left of our caramel coloured brown wool, we're going to divide that again, taking off around about 1/3 again. I'm going to pop that 1/3 aside for the front feet. We're going to start with the back feet. So this is the larger size. We're going to have larger feet for the back. This is going to be divided into half, roughly the same size. So then we can make the feet. So we're going to do one foot first, popping that bit aside, your small pinch of that wool on your felting pad. Going to be using our medium needle, size 36. So first I'm going to fold over one of the edges. This is going to be a bit of a round shape to start with, so just a good pinch. Then I'm going to fold over one edge here. And I'm going to fold the top in here and then fold in this side here. Now that's going to make a bit of a square shape, which we don't want. So I'm just going to tuck in those corners just by pinching in with my finger, tucking it under this finger. And the same over here, using my thumb, you can see a very generalized round shape there, an arc. So to hold that shape, I'm going to push through with my medium needle, all the way through, careful of your fingers, until that starts to hold. Okay, now I can get my fingers out the way. Now I'm going to continue felting that down a little bit more before I do a little peel off my mat, just so that it doesn't stick too much. And I'm going to continue felting that shape down. So I'm not only going to be coming down flat this way, but I'm going to be coming in this way as well. Now you need to be careful of your fingers and your thumb here. So I'm going round, tapping in around those edges to bring that in. So you do a little tear off the mat from time to time. So I'm bringing that in, and this part here with the fluffy bits, I'm just holding on to it like so. So I'm really pinching that in. That will help sculpt in those sides a little bit better. Continue felting that now all over. I'm going to put it on its side now, just to really get in those sides a little bit better, and also on the underside here, I'm just going to go over with that needle. Continue felting it until that's felted smaller and denser in shape. And you can see, if you pop it on, where the back foot's going to be, what that's going to look like on your hair there. So that's not a bad size. I'm just going to bring that down slightly more. One side's going to be flatter, which will be the underside. So I'm just going straight down with my needle all over one side. That will make it nice and flat. So that will be the underside there. And then this side here is a bit more rounded. This is the top side. So as I'm felting, I'm moving my needle over the area like this rather than just straight down. So I'm coming in the sides as well as the top. And now I'm just going to felt in a couple of grooves to make it look like he's got 3 big toes. And I'm just going to come in with my medium needle here from the top, looking at 1/3 of that arch area, felting down the toe there, and then another one here. So I'm starting lightly at first, just to give me a guide of where I'm going, and then I'm going to come in with my needle this way. I'm tapping now, lots of little stabby taps right next to each other to make that line appear, and then again on this side. And there is one of our back feet. And I'm just going to do the same with this one here. Okay, so now we've got 2 feet of a similar size. We're just going to attach them on to the bottom of our hair. Here he is on his back on my mat. I take one of those feet, and the toes are just going to be poking out over that thigh area there, and it's going to be fixed on the bottom through those fluffy fibers right to the base of the cone shape that we made to start with. So showing you here where it's going to be fixed underneath that thigh, toes poking out, fluffy side coming right underneath here. It's probably easiest to do it this way, going right through those fibers and into the body. Putting it on its side now and just holding the toe straight with my fingers so I can get in right there. Get in there, right through the foot and into the base to attach it firmly on. And that's one foot attached. So we're going to do the same with this side. And there is our feet firmly attached on to our hair. I'm just going to maneuver those toes a little bit further apart because the front legs are coming there in between, and this is where the front paws are going to go. So I'm just going to space them just outside of where the front paws are going to go, and then felt through to connect them in that position. And now we're ready to move on to the front paws. Taking our last little bit here, we're going to divide that last bit in half once more. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing again, but this is going to be slightly smaller. So I'm folding from the bottom to the middle, top down. I'm going to fold that again once over just to make it a bit thicker and a bit thinner. This part over here, and then holding that into a bit of a rounded position on my mat, pushing through with my medium needle, a few stabs in, and it's beginning to hold. Taking it off your mat. And now you can sculpt it into that same little rounded toe that you made for the back foot, except this one will be smaller and you'll also have the 3 toes at the front. Now I'm doing the same with the second front foot. So now the 2 front feet ready, we're just going to pop that on in between those 2 back feet, holding it like so. I'm going to push them back slightly because I don't want them too sticky outy. I want them to appear smaller than those back feet. And then turning it onto its back, I'm going through those fluffy fibres again and through the bottom of the feet into the base of the hair to connect them. And now that's nicely connected on. We've got our 2 front feet, our 2 back feet, and he should be able to sit up at this point on his own. If he's not, you may need to go over the base of the hair just by having the needle facing right up into the body lengthways, and then going over that whole area to make it nice and flat. And I'm just doing small taps all the way over the surface. If there's any bumps, that's where you need to concentrate on felting to get the bumps down and try and get that area nice and flat, so when you look at it, it really looks flat enough that it can then stand on its own accord. Big ears also help. And now we're going to move on to the eyes. So now moving on to our eyes. Here I have a pair of glass felting eyes with the stems on the back to attach them in. These are size 6mm. And before we just go and plot them in like this, what we need to do is just make a tiny little area where the eye is going to sit. So effectively an eye socket. So I'm just going to start stabbing a socket around about the same size as the eye I have here. So I'm going to tap down a little circle area, just going over it and over it and over it. Now this is about halfway between the nose and the line here, where we've identified the bottom of the head where the neck is. So just tapping, tapping, tapping in a little circle. And there we have a little eye socket. Now going right in the middle of that socket here, I'm going to make a hole, and that's where the stem of the eye is going to go. So I'm going to put the needle in, pushing it in. I'm not going to take it back out, but pushing it in and out, and then just ever so slightly moving that needle around inside that hole will open up an area where the stem can go in. And if you push that right down so that it sits inside that socket we just made, like so. And that's one eye in, so we're going to do exactly the same on the other side. Just check from time to time that you are making that socket in the same place as the eye that you've just made. And before you commit to putting that eye in, you're just checking back and forth as you're tapping in that new eye socket area. Now I'm happy with its position. I'll go ahead and make this stem area the hole for the stem of the eye. And now we have our eyes in the position. If you have any glue, you can pop a little bit of glue on the stem of the eye there and put it back in, then that will hold its position. If you have a little bit of glue, you can pop a little bit on the stem of the eye to really hold that in position so that it doesn't ever come back out. Here I have some Bostik all-purpose glue, which is quick drying and will hold it very fast inside that area. I use my needle there to keep the position of the hole I made for the stem, which I'll do on the side too, so I can just about see where it is here, popping in my needle while I put the glue on the stem of my eye, and that will really very quickly adhere it to the fibres, pushing them in, and they'll hold nicely, and that's them in. So now we're going to make a little area of lighter coloured wool around the eye, just to give it further detail. You can leave it like this if you like that look, that really nice simplistic look, or you can go ahead and do the next part. It's a little bit tricky for beginner felters, but I'll show you step by step. So I'm going to take that lighter coloured wool here, I have the light mixed grey, to take a small pinch. I'm going to place that right over the area of the eye. Now I have my small needle. I'm just going to tap that over to start connecting those fibres around the eye where we've just been felting. You can hear, because I'm tapping lightly, you can hear where the eye is underneath those wool. Now I'm going to try and position the wool to come up this way. So we've got a bit of an eye shape coming up this way. Got quite a lot of fibres there, so I'm just going to take some off. Now you can see it's coming in to a peak this way, and I want it to felt like that. So you can position it also with the tip of your needle where you want it to go, and then just tack in the sides of that lighter wool into that pointed area. So we're making a bit of an almond shape, and it's coming down around the eye in this area, just pushing the fibres with the tip of the needle where I want it to go, and then pushing in. We now have that almond shape going on around the eye. Now I'm just going to gently tap over that area to connect it without leaving big holes. So again, gently tapping with the small needle. Especially concentrating on the edges to get that nice shape going on there. Now I'm going to go over the middle area, getting that felted down, and you can feel it around the eye. Now you can see the eye beginning to poke through. I'm going to come in with my medium needle here because I don't want to break the fine small needle I'm working with. And I'm going to start parting the wool around the eyes, and when I do that, I'm going to push it in. This will start to make the eye poke through. But I'm going to push in especially on the inner corners of the eye and the outer corners of that eye. You can now start to see that eye just poking through those lighter colours. Now I'm just going to build on it a little bit more, just in the middle of that almond shape, with some more of the light wool, just to set back that eye that little bit more. Again, just tapping over fluffy fibres to connect that down and flat around that shape, and then pushing fibres apart, especially in the inner corner and the outer corner, to start peeking through the eye. I'm going to felt with my medium needle, especially in the inner corner of that eye, bringing that right down, giving it some added detail to this part here. Now you can have the eye just half poking through like that if you want to widen it slightly. I'm going back now with my small fine needle. I'm just going to poke gently on the top eyelid and down also on the bottom eyelid. That will open up my eye ever so slightly, but giving it an illusion of having a bit of an eyelid around its eye. That added detail, just to give it a little bit something extra to the look of your hair. And if you don't like the look of that, you can either take it off, start again, or you can continue building on it until you've got it looking how you want it to look. And then you're just going to repeat the same process on the other side of your hair. When you're doing the other side, just remember to check while you're positioning that piece of wool that it's lining up with the one that you've already made, so the tip of that area is in the same position as the tip of this new area, and the bottom there is in the same position as the bottom there. So now we've got our eyes in place with the added detail on both sides. I'm going to add a little bit more detail with that light wool to the very, very top of the nose and mouth area of your hair. So I've got a very, very small pinch of that same light colour mixed grey wool, popping it on the top there. Now I'm going to go in with my very fine needle, the size 38, just to start tapping it on to attach in that area. Put it this way, you can see a bit better. Well, I can see a bit better as well how I'm attaching this on. So just gentle little taps over that area. Now I'm going to bring it down under where the chin is a little bit here. Tap, 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 and have that come down. I don't want it going too far up the nose area here. So I'm going to take my needle and just pull those excess fibres over to this part. Holding that down with my finger, I can then a couple of taps and that will hold it into that position. It will have a bit coming on the sides, so I'm just going to guide them in the general area with the tip of my needle and tap them down. So you can see this part is got a bit more coming down on the chin, not so much down the top of the nose here. But it's attaching in and felting nicely. I'm just going to go over it until that's a bit more firmly felted on that area. This is a bit more tricky, especially if your nose is not felted firmly. So you might need to go over the end of the nose if it's not on your felting mat at this point, just to get it really nice and firm so you can work this area. You could leave it as it was, just with the point as it was. You don't have to add this detail. I'm going to show you one extra more detail, which is more for an intermediate level for felters. If you're a beginner and you've got this far, then you can just give it a go. So what I'm going to do is actually just try and felt in some little grooves to suggest a nose, mouth and cheeks here. Just a small suggestion. So what I'm going to have is a V shape where the nose is happening. So I'm going to do that first just by going in with my fine needle into the very middle, top point of the nose, and then I'm going to have the V going from there. So this will be the bottom of the V. So now I'm felting upwards into a V, lots of little stabs to get that groove happening there, and then up the side too. This is a very, very small detail, which again you don't have to do, but you can give it a shot if you want. So now we've got a small added detail of a nose. So we're then going to come down and make that V into a little bit of a Y, just a very short tail on that Y. Just going to go over that a bit more. And then that Y is going to come down this way into an upside down V. And this will make the chin or the bottom of the mouth of your hair. You'd be quicker working with your medium needle here, however, because it's such a small, delicate area, I'm just going in with my very fine, small needle, the 38, or the red needle, if you're working with my needles. So I'm just going over and over those lines till you can see a little bit of a mouth appearing, and going back down to part those little bunny cheeks, and then back over the nose once more. Now if you've done that and you've mucked it up at all, you can just then go back over with a little bit more of that light colour and just build it up as you do it. Mine's a little bit squint on one side, therefore I'm just going to felt the bigger side to come down a little bit. It's something you're gonna have to just fuss over a little bit until you've got the right result, which may mean starting again and adding to it, or just continue felting with what you've got, felting the bigger side down to match the smaller side. So we've got something like that going on. My chin is looking a little bit on the small side, so I am actually going to add a small amount of that grey. So I'm just going to fold that over and over again and over again. So now I've got a small little patch to work with. And I'm going to pop that right there on the chin. You can see that just builds it up slightly there. Going over that with my small needle to attach it along the mouth, and then just some little stabs underneath. And you can see that brings the chin up. You can see that brings the chin up a little bit there. Excuse my cat for meowing. Just going to continue down the bottom of that chin with that light colour a little bit more, down the underside of where the head is. And then my head's a bit squint, so I'm just going to turn it into position where it should be, and then felt that down. And then under here, I'm just going to add in some of that light grey. Now what I'm going to do is I've got a good pinch there. I'm going to fold that over my thumb, and that fold there is going to be attached right there in the neck of the hare. So he's got a little bit of fluff on his chest to break up that colour and give that chest a nice little pout area that comes out. So I'm just felting, I don't want to felt it all down, but just around the edges there. You, again, don't have to do this. This is just a little look that I like. You can experiment with what you like and what you don't like on the looks of your hair. It is up to you. But that's it attached along the fold and along the sides there. And lastly, we're just going to add a little bit more colour. So I've got that mid-brown. Using my fine needle, I'm just going to go over parts. Here I'm going to come down under the neck and on the body, and I'm doing it quite thin just thin little pinches, not big pinches because then it would just be completely covered in the one colour. But what we're going for here is a little bit of a mix of the two colours with the mid-brown mixing with the caramel. Especially when you find a groove, you want to get in there in that groove with the darker colour because that really helps define that area. So I'm just gently tapping over these areas to give it a little bit more colour. Going to go over the head here, just in between the ears, coming down the head a little bit. And attaching that on with my fine needle. Down the back. And a little bit in areas just around the face. I'm not over felting it, I'm just attaching some colour gently. You can even leave it a little bit fuzzy if you like that. Going in around the bottom here of the thigh, maybe even a little bit on it. You don't want to over felt there though. Adding touches of colour here and there. Scatter the colour around. It gives it definition and shade. And just a really nice look. So this is the side with colour, this is the side with no colour. If you decide you prefer the side with no colour, you can then just pick this off if you haven't heavily felted it down. But I'm going for a little bit of a mix here. I'm going to put a little bit of that mid-brown just over the edges of that grey that we popped on earlier for the chest, just to help blend that in a little bit. So that's one side. Down the middle of these front legs here will also help define that area. I'll just go right between the feet there. I'll just felt that underneath just to attach it, not that we see that bit. And then do the other side in the same way as what we did this side. Another place you could go is just in between those toes to help define that area also. Once you've got that on, you can just go over with your fine needle over all the areas to attach that further, or you can have it just left as fuzzy like that. You can also go over with your large needle and just a tip there and just brush out any holes that seem to come up while you're felting in, because when you're putting a darker colour over a lighter colour, those holes do seem to come up, and you can just give them a little bit of a brush and that will take down a little bit of the definition of those holes. I'm going to attach my ears a little bit further into position. If your hair is not holding the position you want, hold it then on the mat into the position you do want, and then felt it so that it holds in that position. I'm just going to bend those ears up slightly. There's lots of room for it to sit. And lastly, I'm going to take a nice big pinch of that grey wool for the bunny tail. Now I'm going to fold over one side over my thumb to make that fold there. I'm going to pinch in the sides here So I've got a nice area where I can then attach that to the very bottom of my hair in between the ears at the back. I'm going to go in with my medium here through that fold, that pinch, the thick part of the wool into the bottom. Lots of stabs through to attach it on. And there we have our tail. I'm just going to fan that out a little bit, covering up where we were attaching it. Could do a few stabs, just a few, to hold that on a bit further, and we've got a nice fluffy tail going on. So at this stage you can either go over your hair with a fine needle, or you can use a sharp pair of scissors just to give it a little bit of a trim all over, and it's just a process of neatening up that whole area. You could even go with a little bit of the darker if you want to, although slightly trickier, with the fine needle over this mouth area, and that will further define that area for you. All you're doing is just placing it very, very small amount, very small, over that area, and then going over the groove. And then you can see that's just helped define that area slightly more. Something to try, and again you can just trim down any excess, giving that a neaten up, and when you're ready we can move on to the next bit, which is the moon. So to make the moon for your moon gazing hair, I'm actually going to turn my pad over because some of those darker brown fibres are holding onto the fibres of my felting pad. So I'm just going to turn that over. You can see this side either should be clean, or I've been working already with some blues on this side. So what I'm going to do is take my lovely teal or turquoisey type blue here. I'm going to pinch that down so I've got a good pinch, something like this size of the blue wool. Now I'm going to take a similar size of the grey, and I'm going to mix these two together to make the moon. So how I'm going to do that is similar size pieces, and I'm just going to basically rip them apart and then restack them on top of each other. Continue doing this until those two colours really begin to blend together. Got a kind of half blended piece. I don't want to thoroughly blend it because I like seeing a little bit of true colour poking through in areas of the wool. Then we're going to add a little bit of sparkle. Now this is a special wool that has iridescent strips, very thin ones, through the wool itself. So I'm going to pop that in here by just peeling off and breaking some of the fibres and putting it in with that mix. I'm going to mix that through. This was rather large, so I'm just going to take off some there. Really are just working with a small pinch here. So I'm working those sparkles through, and then I'm going to pop in a little bit more here and start to work those sparkles through as well. And a bit more for good luck. If you don't have this sort of wool, you can use a little bit of glitter. If you have some lying around. I like to use biodegradable glitter, which you can buy online. So now that's a really nice mix we've got there. So we've got a good pinch of this lovely mix of wool that we've just made, and now we're going to sculpt it into the moon. So we're going to do that by pushing it together down onto our mat. So we've got a nice whole area of felt, and then we're going to fold up and then fold down again to make a little bit of a strip going on here. So either using your large or your medium needle, between your fingers start felting that down and together. And that will begin holding together, but also to your mat, so you don't want to go too far before you pick it up, turn it over, and then we're going to go in this way. Now what we don't want actually is a flat of felt, so we're going to go in, because that's quite wide, and what I'm going to do is actually just fold that over once again, and that will give me a smaller strip, but also a thicker one. So I'm felting through the two sides that we then just stuck together, and that will start to round off that strip, so it's less of a flat strip and more of a round shape. Now we're going to make the moon shape by tapering off the ends. So I'm just going to peel off some of that because it's a little bit long. So we've got something of this nature going on there. Now we're going to have that coming into a point. But while I'm stabbing, I'm not just stabbing it into a point to come at this shape. I want it to be coming round into the shape. So I'm going to encourage that to shape into the moon crescent shape by having it on its back and pressing down while I'm doing it this way. Not too much before I take it off. Now obviously that will become flat, so I don't want that. So I'm now going to pop it on its side, and you can see there's a little bit of a curve happening. So continue holding it in that position if you need to, and start tapping through. I'm using my medium needle here to do this. So I'm really just encouraging that rounded shape happening by holding it into the position I want and then felting through the fibers. Turning a lot because I really don't want this sticking to my mat, and I'm going in right to the very end so we come to a point. And you can see here where I'm going with this, but I'm going to continue felting that down so it's really nice and firmly felted. That's one side coming into a little bit of a point, so we're going to do exactly the same on this side. So I'm going to pop it not on its side but on its back to start with, facing this part up, so I can felt this down, and I'm placing the fibers with the tip of my needle into a point and then felting down to start the tapering off of the end of that piece of wool. Now I'm taking it off my mat, remember, because you don't want it to stick too much. Then on its side, to start tapping down on the side and pushing up the side of the moon, and felting it into that curve. Shh. In a general shape, I'm just going to continue going over it until it's a bit more smooth, nicely felted, and you can continue holding those two ends together to keep that shape as you're felting it. Now we have our nicely felted moon. I'm just going to add in a little bit of added detail with this really, really nice thin wire. And all I'm going to do is just wrap that around the moon. And if you don't like this look, that's not something you have to do. But for me, it's just a little bit of added detail, a bit of shine, a bit of sparkle. You could always add little jewels onto the wire as well. And for me, it just gives it that little bit of added extra something. And then we're just going to add on some clouds behind the moon. So taking some of those sparkles again and some of that grey white mix, I'm going to add in some sparkles to that area, mix it in slightly. I'm going to make a very rough cloud shape just by sticking it on my mat. Roughly felting through to a very rough length, and then the moon's going to come on there and felting through the moon into the clouds. We'll then hold that cloud in that area. I'm going to do on this side as well, just to make sure it's nicely firmly holding onto the moon. And you can either leave it wispy like this, which is quite nice, or you can make it more of a well-formed shaped cloud like this one here. It's really up to you which way you want to go with that. I like to have my cloud just coming more in the middle of the moon and that way there. I think I'm going to go with that look. And then lastly, we're going to attach it onto some wire. So we're going to take a piece of this armature wire here, which is really easy and bendable. You could use florist wire or garden wire for this. I'm going with a silver wire. So all I'm going to do is just bend that around into a circle, taking the small part there and just bending it on itself. All I really want to do is make a stand so that this part will sit underneath the hare and we have this part here holding onto the moon, like so. So it's looking up at the moon. So this part I want to make nice and straight, and this part's down on the ground. And before I attach my moon on or decide where the end of this length is going to come, I'm going to make the very bottom of where the hare sits. So I have a mix here of this baby blue, this lovely turquoisey teal colour, and of course my grey. And I'm just going to really roughly mix them up together. It's kind of making nice sky tones. He could be sitting on grass like he should be as a hare, but I really love the really nice blue tones, and it goes just so nicely with the moon, like a reflection of what he's looking at, where he's sitting as well. So realistic or not, I just feel this ties in really nicely with the composition. So I've just really roughly felted that together. Any big lumps, just tease them, pull them out. If you've got any sparkles left, go ahead and add them in. Very rough shape. Now taking my large needle, I'm just gonna very roughly felt that together. So any bits that are looking like they're on their own, just tap them in. We're gonna make a shape that is gonna sit over the round part of our wire. I don't want it to be flat, so I'm not gonna over felt it. I just want the fibers to hold and connect together. Remember, take it off your mat from time to time. So this is not over felted. Checking underneath to see if there's any parts that are not holding together. I'm just going to go over that, and that's it. So now at this part, we'll sit over here, and that is where the hare is going to sit. I'm going to actually use a little bit of glue to hold the wire onto the bottom there. So again, this is some Bostik all-purpose glue, and I use this because it's very quick dry. So that part there, I'm just going to stick it down. And if you want to, and you have any leftover bits of wool, you can just go over that piece of wire and the bottom also. That can be felted on, just to cover that wire up on the bottom. Careful not to hit your wire. And that's pretty much it, covered. So now this side here is going to be where the hare sits. So I'm going to pop him on there, and to attach him onto his base, he's sitting in the middle, he's facing the wire, turning it over. I'm going to go through with either my medium or my large. I'm going to go with my medium in my case, because I really want to feel where I'm going with the needle and hear it going through. So it's going through those little clouds and into the base of the hare. I'm looking at this side as well, just to make sure that is going in. Doesn't take too much stabbing, and there he is, sitting on his little cloud. Straightening out this wire once more. I'm going to bring it right round to where he should be looking, and then this part here is the end, which is going to attach onto our moon. I'm going to pop a little bit of glue on it. It's going to come through here. Positioning it well, and that will take no time at all to dry. Looking at it from the side here. So I'm going to take down the camera and have a proper look at my finished sculpture and just go over the details once more with my fine needle and get it looking handsome and all ready for his evening of moon gazing. I hope you all enjoyed your project today, and if you'd like to try any more projects, I have tutorials, online Zoom classes and kits with all the materials on my website at www.littleblueartworks.com. I also do a monthly subscription box where you can have a mystery project delivered to your door monthly to keep you creative. And you can also follow me on Facebook and Instagram and encourage you to share all of your makes on the Little Blue Felting group on Facebook. Thanks for watching!